March 10, 2019. The sun is just starting to rise over Addis Ababa. The air is still cool, but it already smells of dust, fuel, and metal. In the distance, beyond the mountains, thick fog mixes with the haze of the city. It's a familiar morning on the apron of the international airport. The equipment is buzzing. The staff is talking into a walkie-talkie. Wet concrete glitters under the wheels. A Boeing 737 MAX 8, the newest Ethiopian Airlines airliner, is parked at the terminal. Snow-white body, green-yellow-red livery, and the proud Ethiopian inscription along the fuselage. The plane is preparing to perform flight ET-302 to Nairobi, the capital of neighboring Kenya. The flight is short, about an hour and a half. Everything is standard. Passengers are being checked in, 149 people. Someone is flying to a business meeting, someone is returning home. The list includes citizens of more than 30 countries. From Canada to China, from France to Ethiopia. There are 6 flight attendants working in the cabin, young, collected, calm. Their task is simple, to make sure that everything goes according to the checklist. There are 2 pilots in the cockpit. Aircraft Commander Yared Gio, 29 years old, more than 8,000 flight hours. One of those who are called the man without mistakes in Ethiopian. Serious, collected, restrained. In the right seat is the co-pilot Ahmed Nur Mohammed, 25 years old. Young but confident. I've spent hundreds of hours in the simulator and on real flights. Today he is the commander's right-hand man. Checking the systems, starting the engines. The usual rhythm of procedures sounds in the cockpit. Left engine start. Right engine start. Check. Flaps set. Auto brake RTO. At exactly 8:38 a.m. local time, the crew receives permission to take off. The low bass of LEAP 1B jet engines hums on the runway, huge, with a silvery gleam of blades. The sound is getting louder, like an approaching thunderstorm. The commander gently pushes the thrust levers forward. The plane begins to take off. The speed indicator shows 100, 120, 140 knots. Rotate. The steering wheel slightly back, and the giant machine lifts off the ground. The wheels are retracted, the chassis is hidden in the belly. Outside the cabin windows there is a bright African sky, clear, without a single cloud. Flight 302 leaves Addis Ababa, gaining altitude. Everything looks perfect. Stable speed, smooth dial, clean instrument readings. The passengers are strapped in, and someone is taking pictures of the city shrinking under the wings. The crew reports to the ground. Takeoff is completed. The course is set. For a moment, everything seems to be going as usual. A routine flight, an ordinary morning. But in the sky over Ethiopia, after only a few tens of seconds, something that no one expects will interfere with the work. A small malfunction in one sensor, which will turn this calm flight into a struggle between man and machine. It takes only 44 seconds after takeoff. The plane continues to set when suddenly there is a light, almost imperceptible impact. In the cockpit, it's not even a sound, but rather a vibration, a short push against the body. No alarms, no flashes, no signs of danger. But this moment becomes the point of no return. One bird, one collision, and one damaged element is the angle of attack sensor installed on the left side near the nose of the aircraft. This sensor is the eyes and ears of the aircraft. It measures the angle between the direction of the airflow and the position of the wing. When the angle is too high, the aircraft may lose lift. That is why Boeing has added special protection to MCAS, the MCAS system, or Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System. Its task is simple. If the sensor reports that the nose of the aircraft is raised too high, the system automatically commands the stabilizer to lower the nose down. This should prevent stalling. But now the sensor is damaged. He sees things that aren't there, and it starts sending false signals. Dangerous angle. The plane is turning up its nose. Automation believes him, and it starts a chain of events from which it will be impossible to move away. At this moment, the MCAS is not yet active. The flaps are still released, and the system is asleep. But once the crew removes the flaps, the program will come into play. Commander Yared Gio calmly gives the command, Flaps remove. The co-pilot confirms, pulls the lever. A short warning lights up on the panel. The autopilot turns off, and the liner begins to bite down almost imperceptibly. The commander pulls the steering wheel slightly, aligns the plane. Everything looks like a momentary glitch. A few seconds and then silence. But there is already a struggle going on inside the computer. MCAS receives incorrect data and believes that the aircraft is lifting its nose again. The system thinks it's saving him and it activates again. The horizontal stabilizer smoothly goes down, exactly the element that sets the balance of flight. The liner obediently lowers its nose. This is unexpected for pilots. The steering wheel seems to live its own life. It gives in but pulls back. The autopilot has turned off. There is a stabilizer movement. They try to keep the course manually. Everything happens quickly, almost imperceptibly for passengers. There is a slight feeling of turbulence in the cabin. People don't even realize that now automation and pilots are arguing for the right to fly an airplane. To understand why this happened, you need to go back a few years to the moment when Boeing decided to create a new 737. The MAX is not a completely new aircraft, but an upgraded version of the old 737. Due to competition with the Airbus A320neo, engineers had to install new, larger LEAP 1B engines. But the big engines did not fit under the old wing. They were placed higher and slightly forward. This has changed the aerodynamics and the center of gravity. Now, at high revs, the plane tended to turn its nose up slightly. Boeing did not want to change the design completely. It would have cost billions and required new pilot training. Therefore, engineers have come up with a digital solution. MCAS, a system that will automatically adjust the stabilizer position and return the nose down when the aircraft rises too sharply. It looked perfect on paper, but in reality, no one has foreseen that one damaged sensor can make the system see danger where there is none. And now, over Addis Ababa, in the skies of Ethiopia, this scenario is beginning to materialize. The commander returns the aircraft to the desired course. Everything is under control for now, but MCAS doesn't know that the pilots have done well. She continues to act according to the algorithm. If the sensor data says, dangerous angle, lower the stabilizer. And again, after a few seconds, she intervenes. It will no longer be just a mistake. It will be the beginning of a struggle. A struggle in which a person tries to outplay his own creation. In the second minute of the flight, everything still seems to be under control. As the plane climbs, the city beneath the wings becomes a tiny mosaic. The commander calmly checks the instruments. The co-pilot monitors the engine parameters. Everything is as it should be. And suddenly, a sharp jolt. The nose of the plane goes down. Without warning, without a command. The horizontal stabilizer shifts, and the Boeing begins to descend. What the? The commander says shortly. There is a movement of the trimmer. The co-pilot answers. MCAS has just intervened for the first time. She is confident that she is saving the plane from crashing. Although the real situation is completely safe. The computer sees a false signal from the angle of attack sensor and decides. It's time to lower the nose down. The pilots pull the steering wheel towards themselves. The stabilizer reacts late. The liner is leveling up. There was silence for a few seconds. But MCAS works in a loop. It receives a false alarm again and is reactivated after 5 seconds. Another push down. The movement is sharper this time. The plane literally dives. The speed increases. An alarm sounds in the cabin. Don't sink! Don't sink! Pilots feel the steering wheel getting heavier in their hands. They pull with all their might. The muscles are tense. Autopilot, disable. Click. The green light goes off on the screen. Control returns to the people. But the automatic trimmer system is still active. While the aircraft is gaining speed, MCAS gives a new command to the stabilizer. Lower the nose. And now the liner is pecking down again with more force. The commander understands. This is not a common mistake. Something is constantly interfering. He orders to turn off the electric drive of the trimmer, 2 switches on the central panel. A click. Silence. The system is de-energized. But they make their first fatal mistake. Before turning off the trimmer, They did not have time to return the stabilizer to the neutral position. It is now fixed in the dive position, and you can only change it manually with a large mechanical wheel to the right of the chair. Ahmed, the co-pilot, tries to pull it off. The wheel resists as if it is blocked. At this speed, the stabilizer is experiencing tremendous aerodynamic pressure. The attempt is useless. The wheel is not moving. The plane continues to descend. The speed already exceeds 340 knots. Outside, the whistling of the wind turns into a howl. Yared pulls the steering wheel with both hands. Shoulders tense, muscles tremble. Here you go. Pull. Short commands, restrained, without panic, but with desperate concentration. On the indicator, the height drops faster than they manage to compensate. The co-pilot asks the dispatcher for permission to return. We are returning to the airport. Control problems. The dispatcher responds instantly. Understood, priority for landing. Come back immediately. The pilots turn back on course. But the Boeing is not listening. He reacts sluggishly with a delay. The nose is still pointing down. There is a red speed scale on the instruments. The commander decides to turn back the power to the trimmer in order to align the stabilizer using an electric drive. This is the only chance. He flicks the toggle switches back on. For a moment, the stabilizer gives way, and immediately, the MCAS activates again. The system wakes up, and within 9 seconds gives the command to lower the nose even lower. The liner dives sharply. Roll to the right, the speed increases to dangerous limits. The pilots are pulling the controls with all their might, but the plane is almost not listening anymore. At this moment, a man and a machine are tied up in a deadly confrontation. One is trying to maintain control, the other is blindly executing the algorithm. The hum of the engines turns into a low roar, and alarms sound continuously. The instrument readings are jumping, the stabilizer is blocked. The roll increases, the speed exceeds all permissible limits. In a matter of seconds, the Boeing 737 MAX transforms from an obedient aircraft into an uncontrollable mass of metal and fuel, flying down with a force that can no longer be resisted. The commander makes one last attempt, pulls the steering wheel all the way up, orders the co-pilot to hold the thrust. But automation has already taken its toll. The system created to protect has become the enemy. 8:41 a.m. There is a tense silence in the cockpit, punctuated by short commands and the sound of warnings. On the screen, the height drops, the speed increases. This is the third time the pilots have tried to regain control. The commander orders, "Request a refund urgently." The co-pilot reaches for the microphone. "Mayday, mayday. Problems with management. Requesting a return to Addis Ababa airport." An answer comes from the ground almost instantly. "Understood. Come back. Boarding priority." The airspace is free. But the words of the dispatcher do not change anything anymore. The plane does not obey. The Boeing begins to descend again, as if pulled into an invisible funnel. The commander holds the steering wheel with both hands, pulling with all his might. His face was tense, and his hands were white with effort. The co-pilot tries the trimmer manually, but the wheel doesn't move a millimeter. "It's not coming. Pull. Hold on." At an altitude of less than 3,000 feet, the plane turns to the right, trying to get on course back to the airport. But the roll is getting bigger, the stabilizer is lowered again. The whole structure vibrates. The sound of stretched metal, a heavy hum, as if the plane itself is resisting the air. The commander decides to take a chance. He turns on the trimmer's electrical system again. Maybe we can get the stabilizer back into neutral. But when the electricity is turned on, the MCAS also wakes up. 9 seconds pass, and the system takes control again. The horizontal stabilizer is sharply deflected downwards. The nose of the plane is falling. The overload is increasing. There is chaos on the screen. The arrows are twitching. The signals are beeping. "Stall. Don't sink. Speed too low." The alarm sounds overlap each other. The steering wheels are shaking, and the vibration is increasing. The commander and co-pilot pull, but the plane is already in full dive. There is chaos inside the cabin. People feel like the floor suddenly becomes a wall. The The sound of wind and engines mixes into a single hum. The land flashes past the windows, getting closer and closer. 8 hours, 43 minutes. It's only been 5 minutes since takeoff. The plane enters a dive at a speed of over 900 kilometers per hour. The overload puts pressure on the bodies. The devices do not have time to update the data. The pilots are pulling the controls to the last, trying to bring the liner back to the horizon. But the automation is no longer responding. The last seconds are the sound of continuous beeps, the trembling hands of the instruments, the heavy breathing of the crew. And then everything stops. 8 hours, 43 minutes, and 43 seconds. The Boeing 737 MAX 8 disappears from radar, crashing into the ground near Bishoftu, 50 kilometers from Addis Ababa Airport. A crater almost 9 meters deep forms at the crash site. The silence is broken by the roar of an explosion, followed by emptiness again. A column of black smoke rises over the African plain. And in a few minutes, the whole world finds out that Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 did not reach Nairobi. Where the plane was a few minutes ago, there was only earth, air, and ashes. And one question that will haunt everyone now. How a machine created for safety could cause its own demise. Dust, silence, and the smell of burning mixed with kerosene. On the Dawn Plain, not far from the city of Bishoftu, the earth is turned inside out. Where the air stood a second ago, there is now a huge crater, 9 meters deep and 20 in diameter. The debris is scattered around, as if someone scattered a giant puzzle made of metal. Fragments of the fuselage with the inscription Ethiopian Airlines are charred, but the colors of the livery are still distinguishable: red, green, yellow. They stand in stark contrast to the black earth soaked in fuel. The locals are the first to arrive at the place. They heard a rumble, then an explosion, and now they are running through the fields, holding phones. Someone is carrying a canister of water. Someone is just standing there in disbelief. They see the earth, where the air is still trembling from the heat. Pieces of metal stick out of the soil like fragments of shells on the shore after a storm. After a few minutes, the first firefighters and rescuers appear. They don't see the plane, just the crater. Somewhere among the smoking wreckage are passports, tickets, a toy, and scraps of clothing. The wind turns the pages of the passport: Ethiopia, Canada, Kenya, France. Each document represents a life that began in the morning and ended 5 minutes later. The cameras of the first journalists capture a picture that will later be shown by all the world's TV channels. The ashes, surrounded by rescuers in yellow vests and people standing in a daze. Someone is crying, someone is filming, someone is just looking at the sky, not understanding how something that just took off could disappear like that. In an instant, there is another contrast nearby. The video of the morning takeoff is still open on the phones of eyewitnesses. The Boeing is slowly rolling along the runway. Rising, the sun is reflected on the fuselage. Everything is calm. Both these images and what now lies before my eyes are like two different worlds. Firefighters extinguish the last fires. Smoke rises in a column. The smell of burnt metal cuts the air. It becomes clear that there are no survivors. But no one says that word. Everyone just keeps quiet. A few hours after the tragedy, representatives of the airline, investigators, and experts will arrive at the site. While they are on their way, the news is already spreading all over the world. First, a short message on the agency's feeds. The Ethiopian Airlines plane crashed shortly after takeoff from Addis Ababa. There were 157 people on board. Then the first photos appear: smoke, debris, rescuers. The media is starting to build a chain of events, but there are no details. The airline publishes a short post on social networks. It is with deep sorrow that we confirm that Flight ET302 lost contact shortly after takeoff this morning. Rescue services are working on the spot. Hundreds of comments appear under this message. Someone asks about relatives. Someone writes prayers. Someone just does not believe. At Nairobi, where the flight was supposed to arrive, passengers are greeted by their families. The message delayed freezes on the scoreboard at the airport, then canceled. The silence in the arrivals hall seems louder than any noise. By evening, dozens of rescuers are working at the crash site. They collect fragments of the hull scattered over hundreds of meters. Among them is a piece of cladding with the letters ETHI. This is all that remains of the plane, which shone in the sun in the morning and calmly rose into the sky. Shock turns into awareness. The world is just beginning to understand the scale of what happened. And while the smoke has not yet cleared, the Ethiopian Civil Aviation Authority is already assembling the first commission. Nobody says the word MCAS yet. So far, it's just a disaster. But in a few days, this word will become a symbol of a new era of mistakes, in which technologies have stopped obeying those who created them. The day after the tragedy, the crash site turns into a huge makeshift laboratory. There are tents, fences, investigators, engineers, and the military around the crater. The smell of burning is still in the air, but now it's not rescuers who work here, but those who are looking for the truth. The first to arrive are specialists from the Ethiopian Civil Aviation Authority. Their task is to record everything from the angle of incidents to the location of each piece of debris. A few hours later, they are joined by experts from Boeing, the NTSB, National Transportation Safety Board of the USA, and representatives of France. Airline representatives, engineers, and uniformed men are already on site, guarding the perimeter. By noon on March 11th, under the scorching sun, one of the rescuers lifts two metal cylinders from the ground. Black boxes, parametric and speech recorders. Damaged, but intact. Boeing and the NTSB insist on sending them to the USA. But the management of Ethiopian Airlines suddenly refuses. The decision was made quickly and harshly. The recorders will be sent to France to the BEA Bureau, one of the most reputable investigative centers in the world. The decision seems political, but it has logic. Ethiopia does not want the country where the aircraft was manufactured to analyze its failure itself. The world is watching this step. On March 14th, under guard, the containers with the recorders are sent to Paris. There, in the BEA laboratory, specialists carefully remove the burnt case, remove the chips and boards. The data is readable, almost completely. On March 17th, the French side officially confirms. Both recorders are in satisfactory condition. More than 90% of the data has been extracted, and the comparison of parameters begins on the same day. Altitude, speed, stabilizer position, angle of attack, crew commands, everything coincides with the profile that experts saw a few months ago on the other side of the planet. Lion Air Flight 610. The same plane, the same model, the same sequence of events. In both cases, false angle of attack sensor data, MCAS activation, dive pilot struggle, reactivation, loss of control. French experts record the main technical fact. The helical stabilizer gear of the Ethiopian Airlines 302 is in the extreme dive position. This means that the MCAS system gave the command, lower your nose, until the last moment. The pilots resisted, but they could not physically overcome the stabilizer force. When the data is passed on to Ethiopian investigators, it becomes obvious that the two disasters are directly related. On March 13th, the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, under pressure from new data, officially declares, according to satellite data and flight parameters, Ethiopian Airlines 302 experienced similar problems as Lion Air Flight 610. This statement marks a turning point. On the same day, the whole world begins to suspend flights of the Boeing 737 MAX. By evening, Europe, Canada, Australia, China, and India are all decommissioning these aircraft. The next day, the United States does the same. For the first time in decades, Boeing is facing global distrust. Pilots, airlines, and passengers are starting to ask, why did a system designed for safety work against humans? And why didn't anyone warn you that it even exists? The investigation is now going on at 3 levels. Ethiopia, looking for the root cause. France analyzes technical data. The United States is investigating Boeing's internal decisions. But it is already obvious that the error is not in one broken sensor. The mistake lies in the idea that an algorithm can know better than a human. Spring 2019. While the BEA laboratories in France are analyzing the last seconds of the flight, a fire is going on at the Boeing headquarters in Seattle. Not a physical one, but a reputational one. Every new day brings confirmation of the worst suspicions. The first preliminary report of the Ethiopian investigators will be published in early April. There is no speculation in it, only facts. The quote is short, but cold as a verdict. The Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 aircraft encountered uncontrolled commands from the MCAS system caused by erroneous readings from the angle of attack sensors. MCAS triggered multiple times, each time on a false signal. The system that was supposed to help the pilots took over the controls. The diagrams of the report show that each attempt by the crew to return the aircraft ended with a new intervention by automation. The pilots did everything according to the instructions. They pulled the controls, turned off the autopilot, even de-energized the trimmer. But after turning it on again, the power activated the MCAS again. Each cycle is like a pendulum swing, stronger and faster. Almost immediately, the peaceful wording of the report begins to make headlines. The Boeing system killed the plane. The pilots couldn't defeat the computer. Boeing responds with restraint, but tensely. At a press conference in Chicago, a company representative says a memorized phrase, "We deeply mourn the incident and are fully cooperating with the investigation." But on the sidelines, Boeing engineers understand, this is not just a glitch, it's a system design error. The MCAS relied on only one angle of attack sensor, although two are installed in the aircraft. If one sensor gave incorrect data, the system did not check them with the other, it simply made a decision. Erroneous signal activation dive. The algorithm had no doubts. He didn't know he was wrong. In parallel, the hearings in the United States begin. The FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, is forced to explain why it missed certification. Journalists will find out that Boeing itself prepared part of the certification documents, and the FAA inspectors only signed them. This shortened the time and saved millions, but in fact the company certified its aircraft itself. Boeing is trying to protect its reputation. They publish a promise. The software update is ready. In the new version of MCAS, uses data from two sensors, does not activate again, and it can be turned off with a single button. In parallel, pilot training begins in simulators. The screen shows the same scenario that the Lion Air and Ethiopian crews experienced. Now there is only one instruction. In case of unpredictable movement of the stabilizer, stab trim cutout, system shutdown. But the public is not complacent. There are hearings in the U.S. Congress. The senators demand an explanation of why the pilots did not know about the existence of MCAS. One of them speaks bluntly, "Boeing hid a feature that could have killed hundreds of people so that airlines wouldn't spend money on training." Internal correspondence between Boeing employees is on the table. In one of them, an engineer writes to a colleague, "This aircraft was designed by clowns controlled by monkeys." This phrase will become a symbol of the crisis. Meanwhile, in France, BEA publishes its own opinion. The cause of the crash was erroneous data and the reactivation of MCAS. However, the pilots could have regained control if they had followed the procedures in case of stabilizer failure. The phrase sounds neat, but there is a diplomatic subtext behind it. France and the United States hint that the fault is not only in the system, but also in the actions of the crew. The Ethiopian side responds, "The pilots followed the instructions of Boeing. The instructions didn't work." That's how the international controversy begins. America protects its corporation. France demands technical precision. Ethiopia, justice for the dead. Meanwhile, the sky is emptying. All 737 MAX worldwide remain grounded. Thousands of flights have been canceled, airlines are suffering losses, and Boeing is losing tens of billions. But the loss of trust is much worse. Now passengers all over the world know three letters, MCAS. And these three letters have become synonymous with a mistake that was made not by a computer, but by people who believe that technology will not fail. After the reports were published, the entire aviation community seemed to freeze. Never before has a modern passenger plane been banned all over the world at the same time. But now it's happened. One by one, governments from different countries issue orders. Boeing 737 MAX, suspend flights until further notice. Empty lanes, dozens of planes parked, engines covered with protective hoods. Dust settles on the wings. Some cars are parked with unfinished flights, and airport displays around the world are flashing red canceled signs. This day went down in history as the global grounding, the world stop of the entire MAX series. This is a disaster for Boeing. The financial losses are enormous, but something else is worse. Trust has been destroyed. For the first time in decades, the company's engineers are not looking for a way to improve the aircraft. They are looking for a way to restore people's faith in it. Error correction begins immediately. A special team of engineers, test pilots, and programmers is being created in Seattle. The main goal is to rewrite the MCAS logic. The system now uses two angle of attack sensors. If their readings do not match, the MCAS simply turns off. No more multiple activations, one cycle and that's it. Automation no longer intervenes. In addition, pilots can now turn off the MCAS at any time with a single toggle switch. Each line of code is checked anew. Each test is supervised by the FAA and independent experts. Each report is public. Boeing is no longer hiding behind language. At the hearing, the head of the company admits, "We made a mistake. We had to make the system clearer for pilots and safer for everyone. But words can't bring back what they've lost." In 2020, a new stage begins, pilot training. The program now includes special modules for working with MCAS and actions in case of stabilizer failure. The simulators work out scenarios that were previously considered impossible. Pilots learn not only how to fly, but also how to argue with automation. Almost 2 years later, in November 2020, the FAA finally lifted the ban. The Boeing 737 MAX gets the right to fly again. But this is a different plane. Not by design, but by philosophy. Now MCAS does not replace humans. It only helps if the person allows it. Meanwhile, memorials are being erected in Ethiopia and Indonesia. 346 names, passengers and crews of 2 flights, Lion Air 610 and Ethiopian Airlines 302. It's not just a technical error that unites their stories. This is the price for striving for speed, for wanting to win the market, for believing that an algorithm is smarter than a human. Every time a Boeing 737 MAX takes to the skies, its systems check the readings from both sides. Every flight is a test. Every minute is a reminder. Now these changes are saving lives, but they are too expensive. 346 people became part of a story that Boeing did not want to write. A story in which pride turned into a warning. And if engineers used to say, "Technology is perfect," now there is only one rule. Technology should not forget who the pilot is. Years have passed, but the name Ethiopian Airlines 302 still sounds like a scar in aviation's memory. It's not just a flight number, it's a symbol, a reminder that even in the digital age, a mistake can have a human face. At the Boeing parking lots in Renton and Seattle, engineers are no longer in a hurry. There is silence and attention to detail at every stage of the inspection. There is no more talk of approaching deadlines and saving on tuition. Now every decision is made through a simple prism. Is it clear to the pilot? The company has changed. The MCAS has been rewritten, the certification system has been revised, and all new projects are reviewed by independent experts. Inside Boeing they say, "We didn't just fix the system, we rewrote the culture." But behind these words, there are hundreds of fates that cannot be returned. There is a memorial in Addis Ababa, not far from the crash site. A simple stone stele and a plaque with 157 names. People bring flowers, toys, and photographs. There is a silence in the air that sounds louder than any words. There is another memorial in Jakarta. 189 names. The same feelings, the same faces, the same misunderstanding of how one decision by engineers could change so many lives. Relatives of the victims are flying to the anniversary. Some say they have forgiven, others that they will never be able to. Reports and technical terms are unimportant to them. They just want no one else to go through what they went through. These disasters were a turning point for the entire aviation industry. Companies around the world have begun to review procedures, training, and automation. Every new system now goes through a humanity test. Will the pilot understand what the machine is doing? Because in the sky, at an altitude of 10,000 meters, There is no room for misunderstanding. There should always be trust between the numbers and the pilot's hands. The Boeing 737 MAX is flying again. He's safer than ever, but the shadow of the past still flies by like an invisible companion, a reminder of the price of haste and confidence. These disasters have taught the whole world a simple truth. Technology is not to blame. Those who stop doubting are to blame. When a person stops asking why, the machine stops listening. And that's why it's important to remember, not for fear, but for responsibility. Because there is always a person behind every algorithm, every screw, every button. And only he is able to make a choice between safety and convenience. There is no smoke in the sky over Ethiopia anymore, but the story still echoes in every departure, in every engine noise. This is not just a memory of the disaster. It is a memory that humanity must stand above technology.